Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Live at 5 for Tuesday, March 29th. We've got a little bit of a spicy stream today. Today, we're going to be talking about fun things like sex, like power, like trying to control situations when you should really just be relaxing and submitting into them. We've got all sorts of spice on today's show because, of course, what we really need to talk about again ad nauseum forever and a day is, oh my gosh, where did my screen even go that I have this stuff up? There it is right there, is the Oscar fiasco of Will Smith and Jada. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about how, like, this article right here, why are jokes always at the expense of Black women? I'm sorry, excuse me, what? No, there was no Black woman in this entire instance that was actually the victim in this relationship, except if you are, a woke SJW leftist. But listen, we've got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about today. We're going to read this article from Forbes just because I think it's funny. We're going to start off with this before we get into the really, really juicy stuff. Because, listen, conservatives right now, let's go to this real quick. This is my absolute favorite meme of this entire thing. Now, those who know me, you guys know that I actually, I think that sexual dynamics can pretty much explain everything. I do. I think sex is an underlying issue in almost every single situation ever in the history of ever, because we are human beings, and one of the primary ways that we as human beings make decisions is sex, survival, and food. Those are the three primary ways in which our brain makes decisions until it goes to the emotional decision-making process. But it's all about sex, honey. And so I actually love thinking and have always loved thinking about, about these sexual undertones of different situations, not in like a dirty way necessarily, but just in a way that you're understanding human nature and why human beings behave the way they do. And I love thinking about power dynamics. I know it sounds a little woke leftist. I mean, maybe the fact that I enjoy thinking about power dynamics is actually the thing that drove me to want to understand the woke left, because of course this is all about power and all that stuff. But I actually do enjoy thinking of it like, does anyone watch the show Secession? Secession is a fucking fantastic show, and it is all about power dynamics. And of course there are sexual overtones to a lot. Open relationships are a subject on Secession, as it turns out. And, I just love things like that where you're overtly looking at some of the power dynamics involved, because I do think that psychologically, sex and power are things that play into our daily lives more than people think they do. John Morgan says, this stream is going to start some rumors about me. Oh, I'm going to give you guys information that you don't know on this stream. Well, some of you know. Some of you know from my locals communities. Jared wants, I literally say mount the like button on my channel, guys. Mount and ride that like button. Come on. I know that there's a whole video of me talking about why we mount the like button on my channel. And it actually has nothing to do with sex. It has to do with putting yourself in the powerful position in the room and taking control of the room. But aren't there sexual undertones to that too? I like to play with these ideas. What can I say? I think that they're fascinating, and I think they're particularly fascinating when we look at the dynamic between Will and Jada Smith. And so I want to talk about it. Now, I love this meme because what this meme is clearly illustrating is a power dynamic. This is all about a power dynamic. It is Jada clearly showing that she wears the pants in this relationship. But life is about balance. And we're going to return to the topic of critical dominatrix theory in the course of this stream. If you are unfamiliar with critical dominatrix theory, I will explain it to you. I have done previous streams about critical dominatrix theory. I did a stream about it in regards to Jack Murphy. And quite frankly, how Jack Murphy may have avoided getting himself in so much trouble had he just engaged in a little critical dominatrix theory. There's nothing wrong with that. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how conservatives are making it out to be that Will and Jada Pinkett Smith's problem is an open relationship. That's the problem. It's that they have an open relationships and all open relationships are bad, and I just don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. And we're going to talk about why I think that conservatives are. And by the way, I like Zuby. I like Zuby an awful lot. I think Zuby has a great message. I think Zuby is on point like 90% of the time. I disagree with him on this one, if for no other reason than Zuby is not married. I'm seeing an awful lot of unmarried conservatives offering opinions on what makes for a healthy marriage. Now, I'm neither a conservative nor am I unmarried. I've been married for over 10 years to the same guy. So I think, being in a happy, successful marriage doesn't mean everything. It doesn't mean that I know everything about relationships, but it's gone pretty well. I've never gotten divorced. I've never had that problem. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We are also going to talk about what I think the real dynamic with Will and Jada's relationship is, because I don't think it has anything to do with the fact that they're in an open relationship. I mean, like I don't know that much about their open relationship, to be honest, because I just really don't actually care all that much, but I actually don't think whatever is going on with them has much to do with them being in an open relationship. I think it has to do with the power dynamic that the two of them are playing with, and with them possibly not communicating as well as they do. But really, I think most of it has to do with this crazy power dynamic that they're playing with. So we're going to talk about that. I'm just looking right now for another effing article that I thought I loaded on the screen, but that I didn't, that is actually really pertinent to today's call or today's stream. Oh no, I have to find it in another window. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about this poll. This poll that I ran on my Twitter today that is just giving me some fascinating results. Now, I love examining human nature and just the inclinations of people, basically based on Twitter. Now, Twitter is not real life. Let's just be blunt here for a second. Twitter is absolutely not real life. You really shouldn't take anything seriously on Twitter, but I do think that sometimes looking at what's going on Twitter can actually be really instructive and really interesting in terms of just identifying larger trends. Okay, oh, I found it. I found it. Found it. Hang on, let me pull this up on the screen. This is what happens when I have way too many things going on in a single day and I don't properly set up my stream before I go live. We are going to talk about why divorce rates are apparently lower for atheists than they are for Christians. Because if we go back to this idea, and what you're going to see in this poll, guys, it truly is fascinating. What you're going to see in this poll is a whole lot of people saying, well, I don't think that anyone can be happy in an open relationship, and Christianity and the Bible is the only way to have a successful relationship. And then I asked, well, what is the divorce rate among Christians these days? And what I learned is that the divorce rates among atheists are actually lower than the divorce rates among Christians. So if we're talking about open relationships being an obvious downfall of any relationship, and if and strict family values are the things that are going to keep relationships together, then why aren't divorce rates for conservative Christians the lowest of them all? Why aren't they the lowest of them all? We're going to talk about that. And then we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, topping from the bottom. We're going to talk about this in regards to Will and Jada, because I think that's exactly what's going on here. I think that this is the answer to why Will and Jada's relationship is a bit They're playing with a power dynamic. Someone's trying to be on top when they really shouldn't be. And it's going all awry. And that has nothing to do with an open relationship. It has nothing to do with how many boyfriends Jada Pinkett Smith has. It has to do with them playing with a power dynamic. So we're going to talk about that. And then as a bonus, as an extra special bonus prize, I'm going to talk about a group that is absolutely trying to top from the bottom right now. It's on a completely different subject area, though. We're going to talk about the Libertarian Defense Fund. We're going to talk about Libertarian Party drama with the loser brigade in the Libertarian Party trying to top from the bottom, trying their level best to regain control in a situation in which all of their power has been taken away. Just because I think it's an interesting juxtaposition. If we're talking about topping from the bottom, and we're talking about power dynamics, and we're talking about, feelings, I can't actually imagine a better thing to talk about than the Libertarian Defense Fund. It is a perfect real world example of precisely the dynamics that I'm talking about. So we've got a full docket of things we're going to talk about today. We have got a full docket. Oh, I've already got someone in the chat who has no idea who I am. You know how I know they have no idea who I am? Just because you're an atheist doesn't mean you are good with an open relationship. I didn't actually say that. I'm also not an atheist. I didn't say that. What I said is that if Christian relationships based on the Christian Bible and these good old family values were the thing that leads to a successful marriage, then the divorce rates among conservative Christians should be dramatically lower than the divorce rates of atheists. It turns out that's not the case, which is just proof that living by good old Bible thumping values isn't actually the way to have a successful relationship. Phil McCracken says gay. We're allowed to use the term gay now for things. I love this. Guys, we have taken back the word gay. I obviously, I am not gay myself. I know a lot of people think I'm a lesbian. I'm not. But I do feel like I have enough men in my, enough gay men in my locals community. Basically, at least 50%, if not more, of the male members of my locals community are gay. At least. So I feel like I at least have some license to say that, this is a group I associate with on a regular basis. And so I'm going to say that I'm not a homophobe for calling things gay when they're obviously gay. We should be saying gay more often. Everyone should have permission to use the word gay in every possible circumstance. And you can be the best judge of how you're using it. So that's what we're going to talk about on today's stream. Now, speaking of my locals community, oh, that's not accurate. We got to reload that. There we go. If you enjoy the work I do, if you enjoy my daily streams at 5 p.m. on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you should become a member of my locals community. My locals community is the very, very, very best way to support the work that I am doing, guys. I know this is going to come as a newsflash for a lot of people. YouTube don't pay the bills. It doesn't. And so I genuinely mean this. The only way that I can continue to do these streams and to create this content and to spend as much time as is required to do it on this stuff is if I have support in my locals community. And in return, I try to provide you guys with a lot of perks. We do Zoom calls twice a week. We've got one coming up tomorrow at noon. We do them on Mondays at 7 p.m. We do book club. We do craft and bitches. We have a supporter only Discord. There is a writers group that is forming on my supporter only Discord. So there's lots of stuff going on in my locals community that is only available to my supporters as an extra special perk and as a thank you for helping me to fight this fight and be involved in this battle and spend as much time as I do following the culture war, learning about what's going on, and hopefully doing a pretty decent job of articulating that information over to you. If you would like to become a member of my locals, you can head over to kb.locals.com/support. You can join up for $5 a month, which is less than a cup of coffee. You can join up for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift if you are so inclined. And I really do appreciate all the support from my locals members. You guys make it possible for me to do what I do. Metastep always misses the Zooms. Metastep, you got to put it in your calendar. Gotta get that reminder. Now, I do actually send out an email before we do the Zooms to local supporters. I send out an email with the Zoom link right when it's starting. So make sure you're checking your messages. Make sure you've whitelisted those emails if you want a nice little reminder. That works out too. The other thing you can do to help me out is to make sure that you pre-order my book, Actively Unwoke, the ultimate guide for fighting back against woke insanity in your life. My book is coming out on April 26th, less than 1 month away. You can pre-order it right now on Amazon. You can also pre-order it via my website, Actively Unwoke. There are non-Amazon options. If you don't want to buy it on Amazon, you don't have to. Just head over to activelyunwoke.com. You'll get some non-Amazon options. But you can pre-order the hardcover. You can pre-order the Kindle version. You can also pre-order the audiobook. And that way it'll just show right up on April 26th. And I'm really proud of this book, guys. This book breaks down the woke ideology in plain English so that you can give it to someone who doesn't want to spend hours and hours and hours reading through academic literature. And no shade to people who are doing the academic literature stuff, because it's so important and so critical. But I wanted to create a resource that makes it very easy to understand for everyone. I give you case studies of how people are fighting back against the woke. I'm right now building a platform as a library of information and resources to help people fight back against the woke, giving people something that anyone can do at work, in schools, in the government, in culture, because we need to actually start doing things. If we're going to turn around the culture war, we need to actually start doing things. And this book will tell you exactly what to do and give you real advice from real people just like you who have been there. So it's coming out on April 26th. I hope you'll pre-order it. The more pre-orders, the better, because it tells the publishers and the bookstores that people want the book and they're excited about the book and all that good stuff. So make sure you pre-order it. The link is in the chat or in the description, depending on what website you're watching on. All right, let's get into it, shall we? Well, I wanted to start with this article just to kind of warm us up, to get us back in the Will Smith spirit. Now, this isn't about open relationships, and this is not about power dynamics or any of the things we want to talk about. I just think it's funny. So I'm taking a personal liberty, and we're starting by reading this article from Forbes. Why are jokes always at the expense of Black women? How did Chris Rock become the villain in this? Of everyone involved. I mean, talk about a power play. Maybe I'm wrong about this. Talk about a power play. How did the guy who did his job just got up and told a joke that wasn't even that harsh of a joke? And guys, if you think that Will Smith snapping was about the joke, I talked about this yesterday on the stream. Will and Jada Smith have been in Hollywood forever. Will and Jada Smith have had a million different jokes told about them over the years. Will and Jada Smith have very thick skins when it comes to being people in the public. I do not believe for one red second that Will Smith, and frankly Jada too, snapped over a G.I. Jane joke. I don't believe it at all. I don't believe it in any way. This was as a result of the power dynamic between the two of them, where they're fucking with each other. Listen, I've talked about psychological fuckery on this channel. I did a whole class about psychological fuckery on this channel. I am a big fan of psychological fuckery, but what I see in Will and Jada Smith is they are playing a game of psychological fuckery with each other, and they probably don't even realize it. Probably have no idea that they're even doing it. And sometimes when you screw with people psychologically, they do snap. And they snap at weird things. I have convinced people of crazy nonsense through psychological fuckery. Ask my locals members. We actually convinced one particular SJW on Twitter. My locals and I actually convinced one particular SJW that we were forming a posse to go and hunt her through psychological fuckery. I'm serious. Just in case anyone's curious, I'm really not that motivated to ever form a posse to go and actually hunt someone, if for no other reason than I don't believe in violence. But these are the things that psychological fuckery will do to people. And so if Will and Jada Smith are in this game where they're playing this power battle back and forth, and I do believe that's what's going on, there can be weird shit that set them off. But you know who is not the protagonist in this relationship? Chris Rock. But Chris Rock, because Chris Rock has now, did you guys see? Holy shit. I should have brought this up. Did you let me bring this up. Did you guys see that Chris Rock issued a statement of apology yesterday? I couldn't even. Let me bring this up real quick because I think that this is why Chris Rock is being painted as the villain in this particular situation, because quite frankly Chris Rock is acting like, excuse my language, he's acting like a pussy. Chris Rock is acting like a bitch. And I don't mean that as a derogatory term towards women. I mean that as a derogatory term towards men who don't stand up and act like men. Where is this statement? I saw it on Twitter last night. Oh my goodness. Where is this statement? I saw it on Kyle Becker's Twitter last night. I can't find it. But Chris Rock essentially released a statement apologizing for what was going on, apologizing for daring to tell a joke about Jada and her hair. Oh my God. No, I have to find this statement. I really do. I have to find it. Where did it go? Oh, he deleted it. Oh, that's why I couldn't find it. Never mind. So Chris Rock is a bitch. And that's why he's being painted as the villain in this situation. Let's read this article from Forbes. And I also want to mention, guys, so did you know that I used to be a Forbes contributor? Forbes fired me without ever telling me they fired me, by the way. It was after I wrote an article about how the gender pay gap was a myth, and then mysteriously on Forbes's website, after I wrote an article that said the gender pay gap is a myth, they changed my title from contributor to former contributor. But the reason I tell you that is that you got to understand, like, when you are a contributor for Forbes, you can literally write whatever the fuck you want. They don't care. They don't edit anything. They don't fact check anything. What happens is you get a login that's like a blog, and you can literally write whatever you want on Forbes's website because it's just about content. It's just about making money for content. So anytime you see someone with a contributor title for Forbes, it's because like they're writing whatever the fuck they want. This is not actually real news. These are all just opinion pieces, and Forbes should be more honest about that. But let's read this article. Last night's 94th Academy Awards have set social media ablaze. I'll make that bigger. In what was probably the most memorable moment of the night, Will Smith struck Chris Rock after Rock made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's haircut. Pinkett Smith has long been rocking a shaved head, or has been rocking a shaved head as of late, and has been open about her struggles with alopecia. Alopecia is a disease where the body attacks its hair follicles, leading to hair loss. Correct me if I'm wrong, but hasn't Jada Pinkett Smith like always had shorter hair? Like not maybe all the time, but like a lot, most of the time she's had shorter hair. Alopecia can be particularly challenging for Black people because of the cultural significance of hair within the Black community. Black women and femmes often feel like they have to adhere to societal standards of beauty, which means hair that more closely mimics white standards of beauty. Black women have gone to great lengths to contort their hair in ways that society sees as socially acceptable, even if it impacts their health and safety. Well, okay, isn't it also a thing? Correct me if I'm wrong. And isn't it also a thing in the Black community that like they wear wigs? So if Jada Pinkett Smith was so self-conscious about rocking this haircut at the Oscars, why didn't she just wear a wig? Like, she could have worn a wig. It was an option. They make amazing wigs now. Wait, like I mean, I don't wear wigs, but like, they make wigs that are far better than my hair. I'll tell you what, maybe I should. So why didn't she just wear a wig if this was really that big of an issue to her? Relaxers. Within the Black community, chemical straighteners like relaxers are still popular. Relaxers relax the hair by changing the hair texture, but have been linked to negative health outcomes. A 25-year-old study found that hair relaxers led to an increase in breast cancer. Black women who don't have the loose curls or silky textures that are seen as professional and acceptable in society have to navigate texturism, which is one of the many forms of anti Blackness. Even with the legislation like the Crown Act, which protects against race based hair discrimination. I had no idea there was such a thing, but okay. Black people and Black women and femmes, especially. See, do you notice how they have to be inclusive of Black women and femmes? Isn't that an interesting language choice? Specifically, have a complicated relationship with hair. The irony of the situation was that Chris Rock is the person behind the 2009 documentary Good Hair. The documentary centers on the significance of hair within Black culture. The film explored the hair hierarchy and how Black people with more coarse and kinky hair textures are not deemed as having good hair. As a person who deeply understands the relationship and trauma that Black women and girls experience when it comes to their hair, Rock's joke came off as out of touch and insensitive to the very issues he was highlighting in the documentary. He told a joke. He told a joke. That's what that was. It is important to note the history between Will Smith and Chris Rock. In 2016, Jada Pinkett Smith was one of the most vocal celebrities about the lack of diversity among the Oscar nominees because she was pissed off that Will Smith wasn't nominated. The reason that Jada was vocal was because she was pissed off that Will Smith wasn't nominated. It was a power play. It had nothing to do with racism. The same year, Rock hosted the Oscars and joked about both the Oscars so white controversy and Pinkett Smith not being invited to the Oscars. When reflecting on the incident between Smith and Rock, some on social media have used words like extreme, excessive, and violent to describe Smith's reaction. Well, can't we just say that that's like factually true? Can't we just say that Will Smith's reaction to a joke was extreme, excessive, and provably violent? I mean, maybe he hit like a girl, we can argue that, but it was actually provably violent. Some may say it was just a joke, but why are jokes always made at the expense of Black women? America's favorite public sport is berating Black women has become social currency. There is a long history of Black women and femmes. Femmes, by the way, are like, my understanding of what that word means is men who present as hyper feminine. So even in an article that's supposed to be about too many jokes are being made about Black women, they're still including men in this article. Black women and femmes being dishonored, disrespected, disintegrated, and degraded, especially within Hollywood. Massage noir and the media go hand in hand. Years after rapper Megan Thee Stallion shared her experience of being shot in the foot. I have no idea what that's about. Many still question the veracity of her claims, with some saying she lied about the incident. Oh, why would anyone assume that a celebrity is lying about an incident? How would that ever happen? Some have pointed out the hypocrisy of the public. There is anger towards Rock because of the jokes he made towards Pinkett Smith. And yet when the trans community called out Dave Chappelle for transphobic jokes made during his Netflix comedy special, the public's reaction was that they were only jokes and that jokes cannot cause harm. This whole thing is mind-bogglingly stupid. You know who the real villain is in this? When Will Smith assaulted him on stage, Chris Rock is obviously at fault here. What is it? Dude, like, Will and Jada must have dirt on everyone. This is truly the only explanation that I can think of. We live in a reality where Will Smith assaulted someone live on the Academy Awards, and everyone is making it out to be like Will Smith is the victim in this situation, and that Chris Rock, the person who was assaulted, is the victim, or is that not the victim, the aggressor in this situation, to the point that Chris Rock himself released a statement apologizing after he was the one that was assaulted at the Academy Awards. This is absolutely incredible. If this is not a power dynamic, I just don't know what is. I just don't know what is. And so this is my favorite meme from this entire thing, because what this is saying is essentially that, Will Smith was laughing at the joke until he saw that Jada wasn't laughing at the joke, and Jada told him to just, go take care of that situation, and Will Smith interpreted that as going and hitting Chris Rock live on the Oscars. But it's illustrating the obvious power dynamic that exists between the two. And what I've been saying in this, and guys, I'm referencing my Twitter just so you know, because Twitter is basically, for better or for worse, Twitter is basically like my stream of conscious thoughts about like anything that's going on. So if you follow me on Twitter, like I tweet a lot, no joke. But most of the time, Twitter is just like my stream of conscious thoughts about what's happening in the world. I treat Twitter like a notebook. So like it's just that's why I reference it. It's like the place that I write things down that I want to remember later, and a place where I'm working through ideas sometimes, and I'm gauging what the public reaction is to those ideas among the people who follow me, and stuff like that. So that's why I reference Twitter on this. But what I wrote earlier today is really pertinent to this conversation. I wrote, the problem with Will and Jada's relationship isn't that it's open. It's that the two of them are fucking around with a power dynamic. They are both using power to try to control the other. Both of them. Both of them are doing this. It is not just Jada. This is one of the things people don't understand, is we've seen video of like Will Smith basically looking like berated by his wife, and he's looking haggard, and I understand that like that's intending to show that Jada wears the pants in the family, and I think she does to some extent. But Will's doing this too. Will Smith is an incredibly successful person that has been around the block a couple of times. Will Smith is not an abused like victim in this. Will Smith is engaging in this. And what I wrote at the bottom here, it's like no one has ever heard of topping from the bottom. This is a power play between the two of them. And I truly believe the thing that is effed up in their marriage is not that it's an open relationship. And we're going to talk more about that. I do not believe that it's because it's an open relationship. I believe it's because the two of them are poking at each other, and with each person trying to regain power in different scenarios. Now, what does topping from the bottom mean? Well, anyone who had the joy of reading, this is about BDSM. It's not about being gay, okay? It's about BDSM. Come on. Anyone who read 50 Shades of Grey or 50 Shades Freed. Now, 50 Shades of Grey was the only acceptable book to read of that entire series, but I read them all anyway. So I know what they say. And topping from the bottom is actually something that does come up in 50 Shades of Grey. So this is not just some dirty thing that you're going to find on a dirty website. Okay, the 50 Shades of Grey movies are kind of dirty. Fine, whatever. But this is actually a real thing. This is a real thing. Yeah, 50 Shades of Jada. Exactly. So what this means, we can see here, topping from the bottom is an expression used to describe a situation where a submissive attempts to control the play, the dynamic, or the relationship from their submissive position. That's what that means. That is literally in the 50 Shades of Grey movies and books. And so don't tell me that this is not a concept that's in pop culture. I know most of you have seen at least one of those movies. You know you have. Come on. But let's look at this. We're not going to read this whole article, okay? Because I can't say some of the things on YouTube that are in this article. But I want to just introduce the concept, because listen, yes, we are talking about an overtly sexual concept right now, okay? But think about the dynamics, because the dynamics that exist between two and or more people in bed, those dynamics exist in the real world as well. The same power dynamics exist. It's just that this is one of the most overt ways in which those power dynamics are described and explained and applied. And so everything, usually things like different power dynamics that you see going on in the bedroom or in a dungeon, as the case may be, they usually take place in the corporate world as well, just not like with the sex. Remove the sex from the equation, the power dynamic is still there. Or they take place in the home. Maybe some marriages people still have sex, I don't know. But like, remove the sex from it, the power dynamic is still there. So what I want you guys thinking about in this is not necessarily the act of sex. We're thinking about the act of control. We're thinking about who has the upper hand. We're thinking about manipulative tactics that people use to try to gain that upper hand. We're thinking about psychological fuckery. You guys liked my psychological fuckery stuff. A lot of the power dynamics at play are very, very similar to what goes on in the bedroom, at least when the sex is, fun. So let's read just a couple of things about this particular dynamic. In the world of BDSM, an umbrella term used to refer to things. There are tops, bottoms, and switches, unlike in the gay community, where we're not going to read that. The top is the dominant partner, often referenced to with an honorific such as Sir, Majesty, Mistress, Goddess, Master. The bottom is the submissive partner. When playing with someone, the top controls the scene, consensually, of course, telling the bottom what to do and how to do it. So, power dynamics. The top controls the scene consensually. Both people have consented to be a part of this little game, telling the bottom what to do and how to do it. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to anything that we have talked about today so far? Does that sound familiar to Jada telling Will, go take care of that, honey? The power dynamic is the same. Just because no one was holding a whip at this particular Academy Awards does not mean that the power dynamic was not precisely the same. Jada was the top and Will was the, well, you know what. You know what. But that doesn't mean it's always like that. We're going to talk about that more in a second. But sometimes a submissive can turn this dynamic upside down, and not in a good way, by behavior known as topping from the bottom. Topping from the bottom is when a designated sub in the scene is giving direction from the bottom or making decisions for the dominant in a way that goes against the predetermined power dynamic. And then we're going to skip some stuff because I can't read it on YouTube. Topping from the bottom sometimes happens if someone doesn't trust the dom and can't let it go. Trust is fundamental every time you engage in these types of activities, but it is especially necessary between a dom and a sub engaging in activities where, you might be inflicting pain on each other, or at least one person's inflicting pain on the other. If this behavior is happening, it could be a sign that the bottom is not in the right headspace to continue playing. Now, this is what I want to point out. Because these types of relationships, these types of interactions or encounters, they require a very high degree of trust, right? When you're engaging in it in this type of play, one person is doing things like inflicting pain or tying someone up or doing any of the things that adults do in their private time. And the things that they're doing very literally takes someone out of control. So you do have to have a very high degree of trust when you're engaging in this stuff. But is that any different than any other relationship? When you are, in the case of Will here, submitting to someone else, it is because, or a necessary element of this, is that there has to be a high degree of trust. And the minute that trust goes away when you have these power dynamics is the minute that all sorts of chicanery starts to happen. That's the minute that someone tries to start topping from the bottom. It is not about the actual act of sex. It is not about the act of whatever games they're playing in bed. It is not about the actual act of that. It is the dynamic of the relationship. And the dynamic of the relationship is what will keep it together or is what will explode it apart. Now, I want to go back to this thread that I started reading. The problem with Will and Jada's relationship isn't that it's an open marriage. It's that the two of them are fucking around with this power dynamic. Something has happened in this, mark my words, I am sure about this. Something has happened in this relationship to cause trust to sometimes be there and sometimes be thrown out the window. They're using power to try to control each other, and it's coming from both of them. It's like no one has ever heard of topping from the bottom. I continue. Will and Jada are critical dominatrix theory in action. I talked about critical dominatrix theory in this video about Jack Murphy. This video is titled Jack Murphy's Biggest Mistake and What He Could Learn from Critical Dominatrix Theory. You can search for it on my channel. It's still there. If Will is this powerful person in real life, then he's going to balance it out by being taken out of control. Okay, what do I mean by that? I've talked 1.5 million times on this channel about how life is about balance, about how when we go too far in one direction, we will inevitably have to balance it out in the other. And you guys, like, pretty much anyone can see this dynamic play out at some point in their life. Life is about balance. You get too much of something going on over here, you need to balance it out over here. One of the primary things, the ways that people engage with power in their daily lives is, like for Will Smith. Will Smith is a larger than life icon in Hollywood, in the world, really. Like, what percent of the world has never heard of Will Smith or never seen a Will Smith movie or watched a Will Smith TV show or knows the lyrics to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air? He is an incredibly, incredibly powerful person. And so what happens, and frankly, Will Smith is more well known than Jada Pinkett Smith. Let's just be blunt, he is. Will Smith is more successful than Jada. He's more well known than Jada. His work is more expansive than Jada. He's won awards Jada hasn't won. In the professional sphere, Will Smith is the most powerful person in this relationship. And sometimes the easiest way to balance out being the most powerful person in a relationship or being a powerful person in real life is to, where's my mouse? Become a submissive little bitch in other areas of your life. Because if you are one of the most powerful people in your industry, everyone looks up to you. Everyone sees you as, oh my God, you're not even just a person. Will Smith is basically a god to a lot of people. People are probably intimidated by him when he walks into the room. Millions and millions of fans, millions and millions of people wanting something from him and trying to get to him. He is in an incredibly powerful position in his professional life. So what happens when he goes home? Jada takes him out of control. Jada makes sure that Will Smith has balance in his life. If Will is powerful in one area of his life, the easiest way to balance that out is by being taken out of control. However, Jada also has power here, right? And I suspect that she's not always in the power position in this relationship. I continue. He's allowing it because being taken out of control is a relief. Lots of CEOs go to dungeons in their downtimes and they're not the ones holding the whip when they go. They go because they spend their days in control and they need to balance it out by doing other things. Now, this is actually true, by the way. Listen, I've done a fair bit of executive coaching. I know more about the lives of some CEOs than I really should. This is true. This is not made up. And by the way, if you've ever had a conversation with a dominatrix, they will confirm this. And yes, I have actually talked to people about this. Because again, I'm really interested in these power dynamics. Like dominatrix, who do you think patronize dungeons? Who do you think their clientele is? Do you think it's like some riffraff off the street? No, it's not. It's not. It's powerful men with lots of money. Who has watched the show Billions? Billions for the first couple seasons, it's a great show. Kind of sucks now. I haven't watched the latest seasons of Billions because I just couldn't get into it. But Billions is a great show. And so what is his name? The guy that was in that wine movie. The main character in Billions is the DA in the Southern District of New York. Incredibly powerful position to be in. You are the state's attorney, or like whatever, the head guy in the Southern District of New York. You're prosecuting the biggest criminals in the world, building these big cases all over. Paul Giamatti, yes, thank you, Natty. Paul Giamatti is the star of this show. So he's got this incredibly powerful position in real life. What's he doing with his wife in the bedroom? She's getting all dressed up in leather and telling him exactly what to do. He's going to dungeons. He's having all sorts of manner of thing done to him because he's trying to balance out being so powerful in real life with being taken completely out of control. Because life is about balance. And sometimes when you are in these powerful positions in real life, one of the safest and easiest ways that you can create balance for yourself is by putting yourself in situations where you are taken completely out of control. And I know this will offend the fragile sensibilities of some of my Christian listeners, but sex is sometimes just the easiest way to do that. It is just the way it goes. It can be the easiest way to do that. It can be the safest way to do that. And it can also be the most fun way to do that. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. So I continue. As for Jada, there are probably parts of her relationship with Will in which she is very out of control. I'll let you use your imagination about where that might be. In fact, in this entire thing, the ironic thing is Jada Pinkett Smith right now is getting raked over the coals in the most public possible way. I mean, maybe they haven't been having sex lately. Who knows? Because to be quite frank, if Jada and Will were playing games in the bedroom in which Will was in total and complete control and Jada was maybe tied up to something strong and couldn't get out of it, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Maybe this wouldn't have happened if Jada Pinkett Smith was allowing herself to be taken completely out of control, not doing this topping from the bottom bullshit. If she was allowing herself to be taken completely out of control, she probably wouldn't be in this situation to begin with. Because right now, if you think about it, both of them, quite frankly, because they've been fucking around with this power dynamic between the two of them, both of them are in a situation in which they are both completely out of control. They are completely at the whim of the public. Like, do you know why I say it's easier and safer to do this in the bedroom or in the privacy of like a professional dungeon? Because you're not doing it live at the Academy Awards. This is why you need to be mindful of making sure your life has balance. Because if you don't, you might end up doing something stupid live in front of 1 billion people. Let me finish up this thread. When people fuck around with power dynamics, pun intended, things can get messy. It starts to manifest in weird ways. Jack Murphy putting his, shall we say, emasculating porn on the internet. Will Smith snapping. Jada losing all control over her brand. All of these are critical dominatrix theory in action. I firmly believe that if all of them, Jack Murphy, Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith. If all of them were engaging better in critical dominatrix theory, none of their problems would have happened. Jack Murphy literally put porn on the internet, where had he had things being inserted in places that he probably didn't want people to see the things inserted. Like, it was an incredibly demasculating thing for him, but that's about being taken out of control. And what if Jack Murphy had been manifesting that in a more productive way? What if Jada, instead of playing this home life power dynamic with Will, and just what if Jada had just allowed herself to be taken out of control and she gained the relief of being taken out of control? She probably wouldn't have enticed him to go and act like a crazy person live at the Academy Awards and ruin all of their reputation to begin with. This is an issue of her not understanding what it's like to be taken out of control. That's what it is. And Will, it's the same thing. All of them could have managed this in a much more healthy way. But the reason I wanted to talk about this is stuff like this. Stuff like this. Because I have seen ad nauseum, it's so annoying. Of course, conservatives, and no offense to conservatives in the chat, I'm probably not talking about you because you're here with me on the stream. You're probably looking at things in a little bit more of a nuanced way. Conservatives are convinced that the reason that this happened was because they have an open marriage, and open marriages are bad, and open marriages ruin everything, and that is the only possible explanation for why this could have happened. Where listen, I'm not going to suggest in this stream that open marriages are the right type of relationship for every person. But to blame this on an open marriage, which, by the way, has been a dynamic that they've been involved with for years, no one can force anyone to be in an open marriage that doesn't want to be in an open marriage. If Will Smith has consented to be in an open marriage, that might be another way in which he is taking himself out of control. He can't control who his wife fucks. I'm not going to suggest that being in an open marriage is the right relationship for everyone. What I am going to suggest is that it is the laziest possible explanation for what's going on here. This is about power dynamics. This isn't even about who's specifically sleeping with who. Jada could have slept with the entire Raiders football team. Or whatever football team is in Los Angeles. I don't even know. Raiders are in Las Vegas now, I think. But Jada Smith could have slept with an entire professional football team, and this still would have happened. Jada could not have slept with anyone else other than Will, and this still would have happened. Because the two of them are fucking around with a power dynamic between the two of them, and they are not doing it in a healthy way. AD says, lesson for whole life, have a balance. Everything be better, Mr. Miyagi. Exactly. Everything is better. So I started a poll because I was getting into arguments with conservatives about this. Now listen, here's my perspective. I have been in open relationships. I have been in monogamous relationships. And so I do actually have experience in both avenues. Now, I've never been in like polyamorous relationships, which I think is like it's like a whole other kind of like open relationship, right? But listen, here's some background on me and giving way too much information away on the internet, but who the hell cares? I'm already smeared all over the place anyway. So when I was in college, one of my best friends in college, we went to school together. We were the same age, and I dated him for like a while, but then we just became like really, really, really good friends for many, many reasons. But one of my best friends in college, produced porn. That was how he made his money. Like, I'm talking like professional level porn. He owned a whole bunch of porn sites. I was around people who were involved in porn. I had a lot of sex in college. I did. I am not prudish about this stuff at all. I continued to have a lot of sex in my 20s. It was fucking great. So I've been around people and couples and thruples and all of this stuff that are very open about this type of thing. I'm not prudish about it at all. I've been in open relationships, I've been in monogamous relationships, and I think that every relationship is different and every relationship is unique. And the only thing that really matters is the dynamics or the rules that you come up with in your relationship. But it is absolutely untrue. It is absolutely untrue that all open relationships are doomed to fail. It is just not true. Conservatives, like, let's go back to Zuby's tweet. And again, I want to emphasize, I do actually really like Zuby, and I think that Zuby most of the time is dead on. I just think he's wrong on this. An open relationship is not a marriage, it's a farce. Says who? Says who? It is not your relationship to judge. People these days think the greatest sin is appearing judgmental, but it's time to start judging and having some social standards and ideals. You are free to make bad and stupid decisions, but we are free to call it for what it is. Well, I think that it is a worse decision to be in a sad relationship where you don't even remember why you love the person in the first place than it is to be in a happy relationship where the two people have agreed that they can, on occasion, sleep with other people. I think that one is worse than the other. That's just my perspective. Zuby continues, imagine being okay with other men stooping your wife. Geez, how we have fallen. You notice that conservatives are always only concerned about the women getting laid? Isn't that interesting? So I asked this question. It's a little game of would you rather. Now, what happened with this is conservatives, of course, tried to make their own fucking rules and say, I accept neither of your options. So I said, is it better to have an open relationship in which both people are happy, or would you rather be committed exclusively to someone who barely considers you a friend, much less a partner? I said asking for a friend. I wasn't really. Well, kind of, obviously. And the results of this, and actually, let's just see. I'm just gonna take my own poll. The results of this are really close. So 56% of people do say it's better, and I think that this is the right choice, to be in an open relationship and both be happy. 44% effectively say it is better to be in a committed monogamous relationship where you don't even like each other anymore than to be in an open relationship. I don't understand this mentality. I do not understand this mentality that people have that that there is one specific relationship dynamic, and that specific relationship dynamic will work for everyone. Now listen, again, I don't think that open relationships are necessarily the answer to everyone. It's not necessarily the best arrangement for everyone. And it's not necessarily even like some people at some points in their lives, like maybe when they're younger, would be more inclined to an open. Although, actually, you know what's funny is the people that I know and have talked to in open relationships, the ones that work, they're always older. I don't know. Maybe this is just a life experience thing. People will say, I've never met someone who had an open relationship that works. We're going to look at some of the replies in this. I'm going to, break some of this down. But people will say, I have never talked to someone in an open relationship where it has been successful. Well, first of all, if you're going to be a judgmental douche about open relationships, why would you assume that everyone in an open relationship would tell you they're in an open relationship? If all they're going to experience from you is judgment, then why would you even know to begin with? The people that I've met in open relationships where they are successful, they do tend to be older. They tend to have more life experience. They tend to say, you know what? Sex is not the end all be all of our relationship. And sometimes variety is the spice of life. And they're allowed to do that. And you can have perfectly successful relationships with someone that are not based entirely on sex. And I don't even understand this mentality of saying that sex is the central point of any relation. Maybe it's because I had way too much sex in college. I don't know. But I think that sex is something that can be used that can absolutely have a romantic connection. I think it's something that you can use to reinforce that relationship. I also think it can just be fun. I also think it can just be interesting. And sometimes with relationships, you don't always want to sleep with the same effing person. Just the way it goes. And if you come to an agreement with the person that you're with, because I do think when you're messing around with open relationships, you have to have agreements, you have to have rules, but you also have to have a very high degree of trust that the person that you're with is with you, not because of the sex and not because you know what I think the real aversion to open relationships is? I'm sure like some people have philosophical aversions to it. Some people have just never thought about it. Some people have just never had the opportunity to try it. But I do think there is something about a fear of being alone, a fear of being left for someone else. If you go out and sleep with other people, then you're going to leave me. Well, if you have a strong relationship with someone and that relationship is grounded on things that have nothing to do with sex, then you shouldn't be afraid of that. Then you shouldn't be afraid of that. Part of the problem with Will and Jada's relationship right now is there's clearly a lack of trust. Now, open relationships will absolutely fall apart when there's a lack of trust. But the cause of it is not the open relationship. It is not the sex. It is something else going on. With Will and Jada, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that something else is going on. Like I said, I think they're fucking around with power and they don't know who's really in charge in the relationship and they are not working harmoniously with each other. They're kind of like going like this. They're going like this with each other. It's like when you have a miscommunication and you're saying one thing and the other person just isn't understanding what you're saying at all. It's like you're speaking two different languages. They're doing exactly the same thing, I think. But I don't think it has anything to do with sex, because if it had to do with sex, they would have broken up a long time ago. Incognito for consent, go at your own risk in an open marriage. Yeah, well, it is at your own risk. But here is the thing. If it were just about sex, if it were like, I'm sorry, I hate to break the news to anyone that's not married, but if you get married, there are a million things that can destroy your relationship that has nothing to do with sex. There are a million things that can cause your marriage to fall apart that have nothing to do with sex. Saying that an open relationship is inherently risky, guess what? Being in any marriage is risky. Being in like your marriage is not going to be perfect just because it's monogamous. That makes no sense at all. So I just want to go through some of the replies on this. Because I responded like, we're about to find out a lot of conservatives would prefer to stay in shitty, unfulfilling relationships in which they don't even like the person they're with. Never mind love them. Because the Bible tells them so. What you're going to see in the replies is that there are people that really believe that it is better to be in a dysfunctional, unhappy relationship, but it's monogamous, than it is to be in a happy relationship that's open. And I made this choice, a concrete choice between two things purposefully. I wanted them to have to choose. Would you prefer to be in an unhealthy, unfulfilling, unsatisfying relationship, or would you prefer to be in an open relationship in which you're perfectly happy? And what you're going to see in this is that they would really prefer the unsatisfying relationship. So Tyler here says, why would I cut off your thumb or your pinky? Tyler is literally saying that an open relationship is the equivalent of losing a limb. That is not true. That is fundamentally not true. A lot of people said, why don't they just break up? Why don't they just break up? Let's see. Oh, this is like a Cosmo quiz. This is people not wanting to answer the questions. I can't vote for this. I'd rather just be single if those are the only relationship options. So you would rather be single and alone than in a happy relationship in which that is not monogamous. I don't understand that mentality. I disagree, Boomher. I don't think these are two awful choices. I think if someone is genuinely happy in a relationship with someone and that relationship happens to be open, then why don't you want people to be happy? If that's what works for them, that's what works for them. False dichotomy. I heard that a lot. It's not a false dichotomy. Seems like a false. If you're not happy, break up and start fresh. This is honestly the response. People think that the only reason that people get into open relationships is they're not happy. Like, and the only way to be happy is to be able to, like, it just makes no sense to me at all. The other thing that people said that I think is really pertinent to this discussion is they said, well, open relationships are just for sex addicts. The only people who would want to be in an open relationship are addicted to sex, and the marriage will fail because it's an open relationship. Okay. If you are in a relationship with a sex addict, the sex addiction is actually the thing that's the problem. That sex addiction is going to exist regardless of whether your relationship is monogamous or if it's open. The sex addiction is still going to exist. So having an open relationship with a sex addict, I do agree, is generally a bad idea, but the problem is not the open relationship. The problem is the sex addiction. Just like with open relationships that end up breaking up, most people also assume that, like, the only reason an open relationship would fail is because it's open. There are a million things that can cause a marriage to fail. Just because someone is in an open marriage and they end up getting a divorce does not mean that the open relationship is the reason that they got the divorce. There are a million things that can cause a monogamous relationship to fail, just like there are a million things that can cause an open relationship to fail. And again, I'm not necessarily suggesting that an open relationship is the best thing for everyone or the best thing for everyone like depending on where you are in life. But for some people, it is something that works. And for some people, it is something that makes them happy. And to watch conservatives again just making these stupid arguments about personal choices and love and relationships, it just blows my mind. So if we follow the logic of conservatives, then and every marriage should be based on just like Christian, wholesome family values, and we should never think about sex or want a satisfactory sex life or any of these things. It should just be about wholesome values. Then you would think that Christians would just never get divorced ever. That Christians would have the highest success rate for marriages because their marriages are based on God and are a promise to God. But that's not true. That's not true. Divorce rates for atheists are among the lowest in America. Why do conservative Christian defenders of marriage get divorced more often? That's a really good question. Conservative Christians of all types, evangelical as well as Catholic, tend to link the conservative brand of their religion with proper moral behavior. Let me make this a little bit bigger for you guys. That look good? Yes. By far, the most popular context is marriage. They claim that a good, solid marriage is only possible when people acknowledge conservative Christianity's claims about the nature of marriage and gender roles. So why is it that Christian marriages, and especially conservative Christian marriages, end in divorce more often than atheist marriages? That's a great question. The Berna Research Group, an evangelical Christian organization that does surveys and research to better understand what Christians believe and how they behave, studied divorce rates in America from 1999 and found surprising evidence that divorce is far lower among atheists than among conservative Christians. Exactly the opposite of what they were probably expecting. 11% of all American adults are divorced. 25% of American adults have at least one divorce. 27% of born again Christians have at least one divorce. 24% of all non born again Christians have been divorced. 21% of atheists have been divorced. 21% of Catholics and Lutherans have been divorced. 24% of Mormons have been divorced. 25% of Protestants, 29% of Baptists, 24% of non-denominational independent Protestants, 27% of people in the South and Midwest have been divorced, 26% of the people in the West, 19% of people in the Northeast. The highest divorce rates are in the Bible Belt: Tennessee, Arkansas, Alabama, Oklahoma. Round out the top 5 in frequency of divorce. So it looks like those good, God-fearing Christians who have these perfect traditional marriages are actually more likely to fall apart than people who are atheists. Now, this doesn't measure open relationships at all, but the point I want to make is that marriages fall apart. There are many reasons why marriages fall apart. And most of the time, those reasons have absolutely nothing to do with sex. And I just think it's just like, again, this is one of those issues for me that is a fake issue. It is a non issue. Why are conservatives expending so much time judging people for lifestyle choices that have nothing to do with them? Why do conservatives put so much energy into this? If you want to conserve family values and have your perfect conservative Christian marriages that are totally monogamous and you never even look at another person sideways, then fine. Fine. No one should be in any type of relationship that they have not thought through consensually, that they have not agreed to. If you want to be in a monogamous relationship, no shade on you, man. I understand. I've been in monogamous relationships too. I've been married for almost 11 fucking years. But if someone agrees to be in an open relationship, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is the only thing that's going to screw up their relationship. And it's just getting to be a little bit much for me. If you don't want to be in an open relationship, you don't have to be. You don't have to be. No one's gonna. I saw some answers to my poll that was like, they were like, I don't care what people do as long as they don't force it on me. It is literally impossible. Literally impossible for anyone to force an open relationship on anyone else. If you don't want to be in one, then don't agree to be in one. It is really that simple. But this is yet another instance. Maybe this is what bothers me so much. This is yet another instance where conservatives are taking something that, quite frankly, is a sad thing. This is a sad thing. I think that Will and Jada's marriage is actually pretty messed up. I think it's sad. And I think that this is another way that conservatives are jumping on an issue to try to drive home their social agenda and to force their values on everyone else and say, there is no possible way that this could ever work. But you know what will work? Our way. Our way is the only way it can work. Our way is the only positive type of relationship that can exist. When in this poll, they are literally telling you that they would rather be in an unfulfilling, shitty relationship with someone who doesn't even like them than they would rather be in a happy relationship that's open. I don't understand this mentality at all. I don't understand how 44% of people could honestly say that they would prefer to be in a relationship where they're not even happy. They don't even have a partnership with someone, all because of sex. That to me sounds like the very definition of misery. That to me sounds like the very definition of a shitty relationship. I don't get it. I don't get it at all. But they're moral and pure and appearances matter, and that's all that seems to matter to conservatives. And then they take these ideals and they try to force them on everyone else. Teach their own, man. If you don't want to be in an open relationship, ain't no one gonna force you. If you don't want to be involved with someone in an open relationship, ain't no one gonna force you. If you have always dreamt of your monogamous, perfect, white picket fence, Christian, going to church on Sundays sort of marriage, then I hope the best for you, and I genuinely hope that you're happy. But to say that your way to live life is the only way to live life is just fundamentally not true. And I really wish that conservatives would learn this and they would stop jumping on every opportunity to try to force their moral values on other people when those other people have not consented to their moral values. Or they try to make it seem like everyone else is just crazy and they are the ones with the real true answer about how to be happy, when we know they are not the ones with the real true answer about how to be happy because they're getting divorced at a higher rate than atheists. The moral of the story that I'm trying to make is that everyone's different. Everyone wants different things. Everyone values different things. There's nothing wrong with any specific type of relationship. And if you're making moral judgments about people based on a relationship that you are not involved in any way, all you're doing is being a nosy busybody, and you are putting your nose where it doesn't belong. Stay out of other people's relationships. Focus on things that actually impact all of us. Why we're even having this conversation right now when there are a million other conversations that could be had, but no, this is where conservatives want to focus their energy on right now. It's ridding the world of the evil open relationships because Will and Jada. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. Yeah. Awesome Human says, I say find your community and tribe and marry within that. Exactly. For some people, being in a polyamorous relationship is what works. I don't particularly get that one. That would be polyamory is crazy. But like if that's what works for you, like that's the one I could never do that one. I could never do that one. It requires too much talking, to be honest, and like schedules and like stuff like that. Ew, like I can't even. Can't even. But I do understand the open relationship piece. I get that. I get that. Because when I've done it, it really hasn't even been about sex. It's been about, to be honest, more about just like personal freedom. And to be quite frank, when I've done it, it's been about trust. It's been about saying to the person I was with, and no, I was never jealous when they slept with other people. I didn't really care. Again, this might go back to the fact that I was around porn a lot in college and I had more sex than most people need to have in a lifetime. So it may just have been about my personal experiences, but that never made me jealous. For me, anytime I've been in an open relationship, it's been because I trusted my partner and they trusted me. And we built our relationships on things that weren't about sex. It was so much higher than sex. And when those relationships fell apart, and this is true of other people that I've met in these types of arrangements, when those relationships fell apart, it had nothing to do with who was sleeping with who and when and how much. It had nothing to do with that at all. It usually had to do with a disagreement or an argument that had nothing to do with the sex at all. And so I just think that this assumption that these relationships are doomed to failure because of sex, it is just so fucking lazy. And it actually diminishes relationships. If your relationship hinges on sex, then what that means is that you are not focused on the relationship. If your relationship hinges on something that could sometimes, not when it's good, but sometimes last no more than a couple of minutes. If that is the thing, sex is the silliest thing in the world, guys. Can we just all, like, listen, we might not agree on the open relationship stuff, but can we all just agree that sex is like the silliest thing in the world ever? It is. People make weird faces. Sometimes it is like over before it even begins. If that's the thing that your relationship hinges on, you need to focus on the actual relationship. You need to focus on the human conversation, personality, values, things you have in common, things you like to do together that are clothed. You need to focus on other things. Because if your relationship hinges on sex, that's the thing that's going to make your marriage fall apart. That's the thing that's going to make that happen. So that's my opinion on that. That's my little rant about that. As AM says, the internet now knows Carlin had too much sex. Any other secrets? Maybe, oh, there are so many secrets. There are so many secrets that I'm not going to be saying live on the internet. But guys, I know we're running a little long today. I do just have one more thing I want to talk about that's just like funny. And I hope you'll indulge me. But if you want more Will Smith drama, don't worry, I've got Will Smith drama coming. You want to tune into Nothing Remotely Controversial tonight? Nothing Remotely Controversial is the best. Nothing Remotely Controversial is when I bring Joshua the Psychic on my channel on a weekly basis on Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m. and we talk about what's going on in the world, and Joshua uses his psychic power to help us understand what's really going on. We're doing Will Smith edition tonight. We're doing a Will Smith edition of Nothing Remotely Controversial. We're going to look at Will Smith's astrology chart. We're going to compare him with Chris Rock's astrology chart. I have so many questions about this situation that I can't wait for Joshua to answer. That's going to be at 9:30 tonight on this channel. So we'll be back in just a couple hours and see you then. But do you guys want to humor me? Can we talk about one more thing before we go? Can we talk about the ultimate topping from the bottom that is the Libertarian Defense Fund? I know it's a little off topic, but those who enjoy libertarian drama, you're going to enjoy this. Okay. So you guys know that the Mises Caucus is exerting a power play of sort. The Mises Caucus has attained so much power in the Libertarian Party that it is about to control the Libertarian Party come May. Now, there are people within the Libertarian Party that are upset about this. There are people who are feeling their grasp of power slipping away, and they're doing everything they can to try to regain that power. And one of the things they've done is they have started this thing called the Libertarian Defense Fund. And the Libertarian Defense Fund has been created and is being funded with the specific intent of defeating the Mises Caucus. And they yesterday sent out these letters all over the place. They sent out 4,000 of these fundraising letters explaining their purpose and begging for money. And the reason that this is so funny is that like half of these letters went to people in the Mises Caucus. Half of these letters went to Mises Caucus people, which is how we found out about it initially. And then the letters started to make their way onto the internet. And so then they posted this morning or last night or whenever. So I want to read these letters because they're hilarious. They're hilarious. As we approach the upcoming Libertarian National Convention, I'm writing you about where we come from, what challenges we face, and why your active involvement in our party has become critically important. You guys got to remember the loser brigade, which is like basically everyone that's not everyone. They basically the people who whine and complain about the Mises Caucus like all the time. The loser brigade views that the Mises Caucus are infiltrators. We are all Republicans. We are all Republicans that have come in and to infiltrate their precious Libertarian Party. We are outsiders, and it is really their party, and they have to protect their party from these interlopers that are coming in. I've been involved in our Libertarian Party for more than 2 decades. For all that time, we've agreed that we're here to run libertarians for public office. Candidates spread libertarian ideas to the public voting or the voting public. During my time as national chair, we made great progress towards that objective. We had the top 2 presidential vote results in the 50-year history of our party. In 2020, after 3 consecutive terms as party chairman, I chose not to seek re-election. I stepped down to help libertarian candidates around the country. They had record vote totals. I ran for county prosecutor, achieving over 6% of the vote in a 3-way race. Our party was on a steady course to continue our 2014 through 2020 growth trajectory. But an unseen danger lurked. In 2017, the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville united populists, reactionaries, and racists in support of Confederate monuments. The entire libertarian spectrum condemned the rally. Soon afterwards, the so-called Mises Caucus, a caucus Ludwig von Mises would have denounced, appeared. It urged us to welcome into our party blood and soil alt-right extremists. That is not true at all in any way. They are literally making this up right now, but it's fucking hilarious. In 2018, the Mises Caucus made an aggressive attack on national party leadership. What he means there is in 2018, the Mises Caucus ran someone for party chair that they didn't like. That's all they mean. When they say the Mises Caucus made an aggressive attack on party leadership, all they mean is that they ran someone for chair of the party that they didn't like. They failed because libertarians saw our success in fundraising, candidate recruitment, and party growth. Delegates at the 2018 and 2020 national conventions decisively rejected the Mises Caucus. Well, that's also provably not true because Josh Smith is currently an at-large member of the LNC, but okay. Yet the Mises Caucus persisted and grew in size. It publicly announced its intention to take over the party and settle scores. They paid people to sign up as party members just to vote at state conventions. They replaced dedicated party activists with puppets whose sole purpose was to obey the Mises leadership. At the 2021 New Hampshire State Convention, people were paid to buy memberships. They changed the state party bylaws to let Mises take control of the New Hampshire Libertarian Party. That's not true, but okay. I've seen my share of disputes over party strategy. Party leadership typically goes to those who have the best records and are the most persuasive. However, we've always agreed when the dust settles, we come to support our candidates. The current leadership is honestly different. Ominously different. There's the word. Ominously different. The Mises Caucus is not arguing about party strategy. They want complete control of our party for their alt-right masters. When the Mises Caucus gains control of a state affiliate, they adopt offensive social media messaging. They avoid running candidates for public office. They harass and abuse long-time party activists. They drive away party members who have the political experience and institutional knowledge they lack. The results are sadly predictable. Party membership falls, elected libertarians change party affiliation, and libertarian political activity declines. I just want to point out that Nick Sarwark, who wrote this letter, has refused to endorse either Jeremy Kauffman and I for the offices that we're running for, Jeremy for Senate, me for governor, has refused to support libertarian candidates. And the party in New Hampshire has grown exponentially since Jada and Joe Bishop henchmen tried to stage a fucking coup. But that's neither here nor there. In 2021, the non-Mises leadership of our Pennsylvania party got 176 libertarians elected to partisan office. which was historic and unprecedented. Of course, we know that the Libertarians, they got elected to office, were running in uncontested races. That's how they got elected. They were uncontested races. The Mises Caucus immediately launched a year-long campaign of vicious invective against the Pennsylvania leadership. Just last month, the Mises Caucus took control of the Pennsylvania State Convention. They voted as a bloc. Our Pennsylvania party will not have candidates for governor or lieutenant governor this year, even though Joe Solosky and Nicole Schultz have been campaigning for 16 months. That's not true. They will have candidates. That's provably not true. They've already nominated some guy for governor. Can we cooperate with Mises? The former state chair, Pennsylvania state chair, writes, I added them to committees and gave them a seat at the table. In general, they either used it to be abusive towards other members and sabotage progress or contributed nothing at all. The Pennsylvania chair, if you remember, is the woman that we watched on the Libertarian podcast. In Kentucky, the new Mises leadership focused on social media, earning national news attention for their anti-Semitic tweets. Libertarians left the party. At the 2022 state convention, they nominated only 2 state house candidates and no federal candidates. Back in 2020, the same state party ran more than 10 candidates, including Brad Barron's inspiring Senate campaign. Florida has regularly run many libertarian candidates across the state. At one time, Florida led the nation in elected libertarians. This year, the Mises Caucus drove major donors and Miami-Dade commissioner candidate Martha out of the party. Their focus of their 2020 state convention was a debate on seceding from the United States. Contrast the Mises approach with the Libertarian Party of Arkansas, a state affiliate that has not yet fallen into the clutches of the Mises Caucus. They are running a record 56 candidates up and down the ballot. The state convention was completely unified on running a slate of attractive, competent candidates for office. Competent, of course, as deemed by Nick Sarwark, who refuses to endorse the libertarian candidates in his own effing state. There are 2 paths in front of us. One path embraces the libertarian values of respect, tolerance, and diversity. It brings people together to support candidates like Ricky Harrington in Arkansas and Ruth Page Nelson in Alabama as they campaign to reduce taxes, end the war on drugs, and support individual rights. I just want it noted that I have promised, as my campaign promises, that I will defund the schools, make property tax optional, defund all programs with equity in the title, release people from prison who committed victimless crimes. I've done all of these effing things, Nick. Where's my fucking endorsement? The path supports elected libertarians like Jeff Hewitt in California and Marshall Burt in Wyoming. That path creates a growing, vibrant, and energized party for millions of Americans. The other path imports Republicans to vote in libertarian elections because they honestly think that votes don't matter. They talk so much about running people for elected office, and then they forget that in order to win elected office, you actually need to get effing votes. The path creates a strong vibrant. Oh, I already read that. Hang on. Where am I? I was doing a dramatic reading and I lost my place. Oh, the other path imports Republicans to vote in Libertarian Party elections, nominates convicted sex offenders for high office, and embraces the toxic MAGA culture where thugs and bullies punish their political opponents even when it hurts the party. The path produces nothing but angry slogans and social media trolling. Our path supports the party's mission to elect libertarians. The other path does not. The right thing to do is to keep up the momentum that our fellow libertarians have worked so hard to achieve. As the state convention season continues, I encourage you. Attend your state convention. Show up and participate. Before you vote, ask candidates for party office about their specific plans, experience, and track record. Make sure you vote for candidates who will do the hard work of running the Libertarian Party. Not the easy job of bringing a bunch of warm bodies to a weekend convention. I just want to point out, Nick Sarwark, the writer of this letter, attended the New Hampshire Libertarian Party state convention just a couple months ago. And he says in this letter that it is so easy to bring warm bodies to a state convention. And yet Nick Sarwark and his wife Valerie, Valerie is currently an at-large member of the LNC. Neither Nick Sarwark, the 3-term chair of the Libertarian Party, or his wife, current LNC member, could muster 5 votes to put them on the alternate list. They couldn't, it would have taken actually way more votes to put them on the alternate delegate list to Reno. They couldn't even get 5. They got 5. So he says it's so easy to get people to come to the state convention, and yet he didn't do it. Didn't get anyone to come and support him at all at his own state convention. Please attend our national convention in Nevada this May. Your voice and your vote will determine the future of the party. Yours in liberty, Nicholas J. Sarwark. So the reason I wanted to show you this is because they're so trying to regain power. Everything is about power. Maybe if Valerie tied Nick up, we wouldn't be having these issues at all. Maybe they could just solve the all on their own. Okay, that's not something I want to think about. But this is about power. Just like we talked about earlier, this is about power. Nick Sarwark has been in power in the Libertarian Party for a long, long time. And now Nick, poor Nick, is feeling the power slipping out of his hands. He's slipping away. This is the last grasp at power. And I think this is going to get worse. We have 2 more months until Reno, ladies and gentlemen. 2 months from now. 2 months from now, this will all be over. 2 months from now, the Mises Caucus will control the Libertarian Party because the numbers are just there and there's not a fucking thing they can do about it. 2 months from now, this will all be over. But we've got a hell of a couple of months in the meantime. Nick Sarwark has finally snapped. I knew it was coming. I didn't think it was going to come this early, but I knew it was coming. He is feeling power being taken from his old school, old guard libertarian hands, and he's having some feelings about it. And so now he's trying to raise an army, but it's too late. There's nothing they can do about it. The numbers are simply there. And now we just need to sit back and enjoy the next 2 months of insanity and crying and whining and complaining. And maybe if they all went to a dungeon, they'd all feel a little bit better is all I'm saying. All right, guys, thank you for indulging me on this stream where I talked way more about sex than I probably should have. But, sometimes you just got to do it. Sometimes you got to do it. Yeah, Patrice says they snoozed and they losed. Exactly. Snooze and lose. I love it. Well, guys, I will be back live I'll be back live later. I'm going back live in a couple of hours. Like 3 hours from now, I will be live again with Joshua. Because this is a show that we started before I had my Live at 5 streaming schedule, and we just got to keep it up, okay? But I will also be live tomorrow at 5 p.m. on this channel. I don't really know what I'm going to talk about yet. If you guys have any ideas, do let me know. But I will see you guys at 9:30 tonight. And I will see you guys tomorrow at 5 again. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you soon.